Hello everybody. Next up we face Leeds United in the third round of the Football Association's Challenge Cup. I call it that because the usual rules apply. If sponsors want to send me some plane tickets, they can have a mention. Otherwise, proper competition names only around here. Oh, thank you very much. Kick-off is now at 2 p.m. with extra time and kicks from the penalty mark being available to decide the tie, should the scores be level after 90 minutes. Engineering works may make things a little bit more convenient for once, with Fenchurch Street being closed. Trains will be diverted via Stratford to Liverpool Street. Check before you leave and all that. So Leeds then. Well, after their promising-ish return to the top flight after however many years it was last term, they're finding it a little bit more of a grind this time round. COVID postponements meant that they played just the 4 matches in December. They opened with a 2-2 draw at home to Brentford, Bamford's 96th minute equaliser rescuing a point. They then lost to a similarly late and iffy penalty to Chelsea, who prevailed 3-2 on that night. That match had its ill-tempered moments, but it was nothing to compare with the 1970 FA Cup final and replay, which is well worth a watch on YouTube if you can find it. The word brutal leaps to mind. I recall a referee a few years ago being shown the replay in full and stating that the match would have had to have been abandoned if it had been played these days, as sendings off would have reduced both teams to fewer than the 7 a-side required to play a match. They followed the Chelsea loss with a 7-0 defeat at Manchester City, of which Bielsa was honest enough to admit there were no redeeming features. A 4-1 defeat at Arsenal followed before matches against Liverpool away and Villa at home fell foul of the dreaded virus. They opened 2022 with a much-needed win against fellow strugglers Burnley, prevailing 3-1 to give them their first win since a 1-0 win over Palace at the end of November. The Burnley win was only their 4th in the league this season. It gave them a little bit of breathing space, placing them in 16th spot with 19 points from the 19 they've played so far. That's 6 points clear of Watford and 8 clear of Burnley, who occupy the top of the trapdoor places ahead of Newcastle and Norwich. So they're sort of out of trouble for the time being, but with one eye over their shoulder just in case. It's early days for the winter window just yet, and Daisy informs me that they've yet to add to the first team squad with which they started the season. That squad is just a little bit on the light side at the moment. In defence, centre-half Liam Cooper has a hamstring problem which will keep him out of contention until March at least. It's a similar prognosis for Declan Rice's junior partner at international level, Calvin Phillips, whose hamstring is similarly pinged. Midfielder Jamie Shackleton is recovering from an Achilles problem. Now those 3 have all amassed double figures in league appearances this season, so they're big misses. Jason Bamford is also a major doubt. He's recovering from a thigh problem, and latest reports suggest that he's still suffering a lot of discomfort from it. The official statement was that although rated as 50-50, the wisdom of bringing him back into the first team right away is being very, very much questioned. Rodrigo Stroik and Charlie Cresswell, the youngster who you might recall made an impressive debut up at Elland Road in the league fixture earlier this season, are also definitely ruled out. Top scorer so far is Brazilian ringer Rapina. He's quite skillful and a tricky little blighter. His progress at Elland Road is such that he's now made his debut for the Brazilian national side. This happened in October and he impressed with a number of goals and assists in the World Cup qualifying rounds. His form has started to attract the attention of a number of scouts across Europe. There is talk of a new contract, but even so, the rumour is that any new deal will need to include some form of release clause before it's signed by the player. This being a cup match, of course, it's likely that there will be many changes considered to the starting 11. However, with so many injuries, I suspect that the starting lineup will not be too dissimilar to that which turned out against Burnley, especially since the yellow cards picked up by Llorente and Roberts in that match will preclude any involvement in the league fixture at the Olympic Stadium a week later. And so we move on to the wild and wacky world of association football. The football amnesty on Liverpool reached a new low the other day as Mane's assault on Azpilicueta went unpunished. The referee was Anthony Taylor, who had such a poor game when we played Arsenal that apologies were issued on his behalf. Since it's clear that the official has little idea of what he is doing, how about rewarding his performance with some retraining, which is so clearly required, rather than rewarding his incompetence with further high-profile games? Meanwhile, over at Chelsea, they had a bit of internal strife to deal with. Romelu Lukaku, having told audiences back in Italy just how much he missed things back there and how tiresome it was not being in the Chelsea side. This led to him being dropped from the squad. Now obviously his wages would hinder us from making a cheeky loan bid, but the thought did occur, if only to stop the bugger scoring against us like he always used to. In any case, clear the air talks were held, and he's now back in the fold for whenever they play minor opposition. He's likely to face Chesterfield in the Cup at the weekend, and he also faced Spurs in the League Cup in midweek. And so on to us then. It was an odd game that over at Palace. The old adage of you get what you deserve if you don't take your chances was amply demonstrated. Both our open play goals were superb, with the impressive Lanzini's first probably being the pick of them. We still looked a bit iffy at the back though, and the returns of Zuma and Cresswell really can't come soon enough. When Palace's first went in, there was a worrying inevitability of the arrival of the second, and that overhead kick right at the end nearly dropped us points. Still, you had to laugh at their supporters though, one of whom after the game was going on about how noisy they were at the end. Yeah, warming up in silence for 85 minutes will give you a bit of a hand doing that, won't it? Their lousy ground hasn't improved any, though the view was hindered by the teen element of our support, some of whom believe that once through the turnstiles they can stand pretty much where they like. Now the spotty Herbert who pushed his way into our row with his mates can count himself lucky that he encountered someone as tolerant as yours truly. Had he gone in a row or two behind, there are a few gentlemen there who I know will have ejected him with a lot more force than I did. For the record, guys, find the seat on your ticket and stand there. It's not rocket science, is it? Our injury list is as it was, with the potential for a return for Fornals if he can get one little red line on his test strip rather than two. We will be without Benrahma, who's bound for African Cup of Soup duty with Algeria, though. We do have the opportunity to rest one or two, but I would think that we'd stop well short of the virtual youth 11 that started the Zagreb game. I'd be looking at something like the side that started the League Cup quarter-final as a template for this one. So let's move on to the subject of the prediction then. It's always tricky for cup games when you're trying to second guess how many first team players will be involved for either side. However, I reckon our second string should have enough to deal with whatever they can muster. So the £2.50 I was going to use to buy Mane's get out of jail free card just to see how much it's worth in real life will instead be going on a home win. Let's go for 3-1 to us, please, Mr. Winston, and enjoy the game.
Right, so we're here in the offices of a Late Late Show with the host of a Late Late Show, James Corden.
Hi.
Big West Ham fan.
Yes. And big knees up Mother Brown, man.
Yeah.
Get on the forum at kumb.com. Come on, you irons.